In this Jedi Survivor video, I will be reviewing the full game for you. I've completed it and I'm able to share what I liked and what I didn't. Plus, I can show you much more than you ever knew about the game without spoilers. Before we do get into this review though, make sure you do subscribe to this channel so you won't miss any future Jedi Survivor videos I've got planned. Thanks to EA, I got the game last week ahead of its release on April 28th. Let's start with the much required context for this review. I played on the PC version of the game with a good PC and controller. My playthrough of the main story took around 20 hours, but there are some important notes to keep in mind. I played on the medium difficulty, which is Jedi Knight. They've added one since the first game, which is Jedi Padawan, a step below. Also, I rushed through the entire story because I wanted to make sure I could review the actual main missions in the game, so I did not do much side content during my main story playthrough. On top of that, the second chapter in the game only took me around 2 hours because I had already played it at the preview event, where it took me 4 hours, so I knew my way around how to do that. The most time-consuming things in this game for me were the last bosses, which took dozens of attempts. The satisfaction of beating a boss with a Star Wars story attached to it does not get old in this game. The lowest difficulty, Story Mode, is extremely easy and it allows you to breeze through the game if you wish to do that. What I'm saying is, how long this game will take to complete is going to be different for everyone. You should not be going into this game thinking that you want X amount of hours out of the game because it's going to be different for everyone. Because if you just play on the lowest difficulty, well, it's going to take you a lot less time because enemies are not a problem whatsoever. They are very easy. The $70 price tag is a hike over Fallen Order. Just like most next-gen games, that's the cost these days, not that it's an excuse. However, there is a significant amount of more content in this game over Fallen Order. Keep in mind that some retailers are selling it for less than $70, so it's a win there if you do get it cheaper than that. The deluxe edition, being $20 more for just a few cosmetic items, is far overpriced though compared to Fallen Order's deluxe edition, which had a really awesome documentary included, as well as some concept art. It was also around $10 more than the standard version. In my opinion, this game lets you get lost and have fun in a small living Star Wars galaxy for dozens of hours, and that's worth the cost. However, there is a deal breaker for some people, and the fact is, a download is required to play the game with a disc. This is not good for game preservation. Moving on to what I thought about the story without spoilers. Jedi Fallen Order's story has left a lasting effect on fans over the past few years. How could Respawn top a story that included all of these incredible moments? Well, they've taken its places you would never have thought of. The trailers only show the first 60% or so of the game. Just when you think, oh, that's a bit of a low-key ending, they stab you with a lightsaber and cut you down. It's a wild ride, and it goes places and explores what fans have wanted. More than anything, the story is about what it means to be a Jedi and family. This is a story that connects several eras from the High Republic and the prequels, through to the original trilogy, and even resembles some of what we see in the sequels. For me, this game captures Star Wars in a fantastic way. Action, adventure, family, loss, the dark side, and the light. What I will say is that the first half might not be very engaging for some players until things take a real turn in the second half. I played the 20 hours of the story over the course of 2 days and I just could not put it down. I wanted so desperately to defeat the bosses that kept killing me at the very last moment, and I also wanted to know what happened next in the story. Now let's talk about gameplay and fun factor. It keeps the things that we liked about Fallen Order and fixes the things that we complained about. Fast travel is such a time saver, but also the maps are just laid out way better. You spend far less time backtracking, as you can go back to the Mantis by heading forward and exploring what's in front of you before reaching the Mantis. Typically when you land on a planet for the first time, there'll be one way to go from the Mantis, but there are several ways to come back to the Mantis. The general movement of Cal is tighter too. It feels a lot more responsive, which I love. The new lightsaber stances add more to the method of completing the game. when I unlocked the cross-guard stance, I used it by far the most for the rest of the game. The slow and powerful strikes felt great in my hands. The blaster is good for taking out low-level enemies, but I found that dual wield was also a lot of fun. I just liked that fast action combat. Customization for Cal, his blaster, BD1 and lightsabers are nice and in-depth, a huge step up from the first game. You can really just make everything your own. I did not find any Mantis customization, and there is no battle grid mode either, which is disappointing. If you are still wanting that battle grid itch, fret not, because there is a replacement, even though it's very different. So there is some side content called Holo Tactics, and it uses the same sort of mechanics from Battle Grid for a minigame inside of Greezer's Cantina. So you have a video game inside of a video game. It's honestly a nice change of pace when you're going around the world of Kobo. I really appreciate these Star Warsy things that Respawn have added to the game. There is also no option to change the individual lightsaber colours like so many people wanted to, so there are some negatives there. A good thing though that was not part of Fallen Order at launch is New Game Plus, so it's in the game at launch, that's right. I'm glad it is here and you don't have to wait months for it. It has some new features as well, such as new lightsaber colours, perks and more. Enemy variety is something that people didn't like about Fallen Order, and it has improved somewhat. You spend less time fighting creatures and more time seeing the Bedlam Raiders and Empire. It's fun wandering around Kobo when the Bedlam Raiders and their battle droids are in a fight with the Empire, like they're just fighting on their own and you can just join in or go past them if you like. I would say the battle droids for the Bedlam Raiders have the most variety because you have B1s all the way up to, say, Magna Guards and Droidekas, whereas the Bedlam Raider soldiers are basically just staff users at a different level of difficulty. BD1 gets upgraded over time with new features to use against enemies, but more so access new areas on the levels. I really like these mechanics and how they included BD1 more in terms of gameplay. He doesn't do as much in the story compared to, say, Fallen Order, because after all he was Eno Cordova's droid and he's key to this journey Cal is going on. But, you know, Cal and BD1 and along with the other cast members do speak to BD1 a lot, so there is a lot of cool BD1 moments. It's just that it's more in gameplay this time, which I think is a great evolution. BD1 also projects the holomap again, which was one of the main issues people had with Fallen Order. Now, what I will say is it's far better than Fallen Order because it has way more features. It's just easier to get around and find out where you want to go back to. It's definitely an improvement, but it's still got issues. I don't know what it was, maybe it was a bug, but navigation-wise, it doesn't zoom when you want it to. And then there was a delay for when I was moving around sometimes, which probably is a bug, but still that's my experience of a pre-launch version of the game. I know people want the hologram feature because it's so Star Wars, but part of me thinks they should just stop the hologram stuff. Speaking of accessing new areas, there are new traversal mechanics that you unlock over the course of the story that allow for more fun and unique ways to get around. Force Dash is a much needed addition. It really changes how you go around the game. The grapple hook requires a grapple point on surfaces, so you can't just freely use it, but combining jumping, dashing, the grapple, wall running and climbing is really good fun. I'm also a fan of Merrin's charm that bypasses laser gates. She also has an additional movement feature that offers some really cool but linear gameplay, but I'm not going to spoil that for you. Whilst on the topic of companions, both Merrin and Bode can aid you in fights. I found Merrin's ability that you activate and she'll do it to be more useful for taking down those who stand in your way than Bode's though. A big complaint of Fallen Order was that once you've completed the game, there wasn't much else to do other than just go and find crates and get ponchos out of them. Well, the side quest stuff in Jedi Survivor has story to it, and it's really good, to be honest. It's just way better than you think. I completed one of the side quest lines in full, and it included cutscenes, action, and some good story overall. No spoilers though. Whilst not all side quests are the same as they have variation, I've not done every bit of side quest content. Like I said, I've only completed one line in full, but from what I've experienced, there is a lot of go somewhere, kill someone or find something, come back and repeat. There is some variation involved, but I don't know what the extent is to that because I just didn't have time to complete all of it. The characters they've created for these jobs, specifically the aliens, are great, and they will prolong your playtime in a meaningful way. Of course, all of this is optional, so if the rewards for the questline don't really interest you, there's probably one that does. The puzzle rooms were also fun and not tedious like the tombs in Fallen Order. The High Republic Jedi architecture is stunning and so fun to play around in. I will now discuss locations and graphics. Personally, I was really glad to see Respawn come up with new planets and locations rather than just relying on ones that we've seen dozens of times before, not just in films and shows but in other Star Wars games recently. Coruscant is not a big map and I was hoping for a little bit more, but Kobo is huge and offers enough variation. The other locations are stunning and different, and I know some people will be like, well, I want this iconic location, I want all of these iconic planets. There isn't that. Respawn went out their way to craft their very own new unique Star Wars canon material, and that deserves a lot of respect, and it's good, in my opinion, compared to just bringing back planets that we've seen many times before. The animals you can ride on Kobo are extremely useful for traversing this humongous world, but animal riding is limited to Kobo and Jeddah. It feels like some of the other planets did not get as much time to shine as Kobo or Jeddah. They are content rich, have a lot of detail and are huge in size, but I think a couple of the others do lack a little bit more depth to them, such as Coruscant. Graphics are not a huge jump over Fallen Order, but there are some improvements. There is way more stuff on screen at any given time, so whilst graphics are similar, there's just way more stuff, way more props, objects, fidelity. The world just feels lived in. Rambler's Reach is a nice place to hang out in, especially Greaser's Cantina. Ray tracing does improve the lighting in a lot of situations, but some people will not want to use it because it's not a huge difference, and you do take a hit to performance. This leads me on to performance. I played an unfinished version of the game on PC. Whilst I had major bugs which should be fixed for release day, I cannot confirm if they will be at the time of recording this video. For example, changing the graphic settings from low to epic basically had no effect on performance, and performance was just bad, like really bad. It would be 10 to 50 FPS most of the time, despite being low and medium settings on a 3080 and a 5900X. In the last third of the game, it was mostly fine, so that was confusing to me, but even after I've completed the game and returned to Kobo and Coruscant, performance is still dreadful. My experience should be an isolated incident though. I've spoken to fellow creators of mine on weaker PCs, and they did not have the same issue I had. I just can't confirm if this is what it will be like for a lot of people at launch. If it launches unplayable like this, then it's simply unacceptable. If these issues are fixed for launch, I will put a pinned comment down below to say that it has. Steam and EA do have a good policy, so if it doesn't run on your PC at launch, then you are protected. I'm just stating my experience from a pre-release version of the game. Hopefully this bug isn't in the final game and other people experience it, but I'm just sharing my experience on PC. I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything I've shared in this video, so please do comment them down below. If you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like to help support the channel. Subscribe for more Jedi Survivor videos. If you missed any of my previous videos, which you probably did, click on the playlist on screen right now, and I shall see you in my next video. Goodbye.